What if loving your body does not mean staying the same? Today, we're exploring where body positivity and fat acceptance meets us avoiding doing the work on ourselves. We're going to talk about why body positivity is so important and how you can use body positivity as fuel to actually live the lifestyle that you really want. So if you're someone that's ever really struggled with body image, which if you're anywhere near as fat as I used to be, you probably have to some extent, then you're going to find this extremely helpful. My name is Nick. I lost 110 pounds in 2019 after a lifetime of losing weight and gaining it back on every single diet that you have ever heard of and that has ever existed on planet Earth. In 2019, I put obesity behind me for good, and now it's been 6 years of keeping it off without dieting, without being a slave to food, and without feeling like shit about my body and trying to hate myself into results that were never permanent or never sustainable in the first place. When I think of so there's body positivity and there's the body positivity movement. When I think about body positivity, right, what we're really saying is we want to feel good in our body. Everyone that's fat wants to feel good in their body. When I ask someone why they want to lose weight, every single person says, I want to look better and I want to feel better. And then half the people have deeper reasons. Other half the people are kind of disconnected from deeper reasons. But wanting to look better and wanting to feel better are the first two things that every single person I've ever asked that question to has said. And that makes sense. Let's dive into the history of the body positivity movement so that you can understand where this has all come from. So in the 1960s, 1969, this is Vietnam era, for those of you that are in the United States, this guy named Bill Fabry had a wife that was really fat, and she was getting shit for it all over the media. So he went and founded something called the now I'm going to say this wrong, the National Association of Fat Acceptance. The National Association of Fat Acceptance. That's an actual thing in the late 60s. And the goal of this was to end fat shaming, to promote fat rights, and to end this term that was created from this movement called fat phobia, which is like you know what fat phobia is? People don't want to be around people that are fat. They treat fat people different than they might a skinny person. It's fat discrimination, right? So this was founded in the late 60s, 1969. We fast forward to the 1990s, and this is like the rise of what people call body neutrality and really feminism at the same time. And this is when the feminist movement in the US in particular really actually took the reins of what people call the body positivity movement. And again, your political views aside, like, I don't give a fuck about a lot of the political shit. This is just what actually happened, right? In the 90s, the feminist movement comes out, and they're all about, you know, gender equality first, but they were a lot more about race equality, racial equality, disability equality, age equality, and it turned into also body equality and fat equality and fat rights and fat acceptance, right? And these are all like really, really, really great things. Like, people should not be treated different because they're fat. That's obvious, right? So the intention of all these things is absolutely amazing and spot on. Then we get to the 2010s, and this is like social media taking over, right? This is YouTube is in its prime. Snapchat is out there. People are all over Facebook posting stuff. This is like the post-MySpace era, right? People are just starting to get on Instagram in the late 2010s, and it's becoming more popular. And this is where we got hashtags like hashtag body positivity, hashtag all bodies are good bodies, hashtag F your beauty standards. And it kind of became this like activist, ultra leftist liberal thing where it was like loving your body somehow was tied to being a liberal, which is fucking ridiculous. And but it was really led, a lot of the reason why is it was led by people that were in these groups that have been discriminated against historically: queer people, people of color, women of disabilities in particular, but there's also men. But this is 95% plus driven and represented by women. So it's seen in the media to be more of a woman-related issue, but all you men listening to this, I know you relate to these sort of things too. That's just not really how it's portrayed in the media, and that's just how it is, part of being a guy. When things became really mainstreamed, they became commercialized. And by commercialized, this is when companies start using body positivity to make money, right? So it becomes less about acceptance of people that are fat and more about how can we monetize people's obesity. So Nike starts coming out with fat mannequins. You know, late 2010, you go into a Nike store, there's like obese mannequins in there, right? We start seeing commercials of, you know, that previously would have been these like modelistic looking women. We're like only 1 in 1,000 women that are extremely hypersexualized in like every single ad, right? These like very what people might call unrealistic beauty standards, and totally get it, are starting to get a little bit replaced with people that are overweight. And they're still like extremely beautiful, tangibly extremely beautiful people, but beautiful people that are also overweight. This is when we start to see like Curbs is like this fitness thing that a lot of y'all women might have been a part of. I remember growing up, my mom being a part of this stuff. This is when we start to see like Lane Bryant is kind of like the bigger woman's store, right? So it starts to become about making money. So at some point, the body positivity movement was just completely monetized. And this was backlash. All this hashtag body positivity shit was backlashed in really in the 2020s, like COVID and into the COVID, where it started to just become something that was pushed by like some of the most attractive people ever. So there was this movement of like, this correction of like, okay, now we have more normal meaning representative of the population or closer to it, because people that are overweight, and most of the country's overweight, most of the world, not the world, but most of the Western civilization at a high percentage, especially in the United States, are overweight. And get it? That was my whole life. I was one of the fattest people ever, right? Not really, but one of the fattest people that you would see in any given day. That was me, or maybe even a week. And the reality is that when we got to the 2020s, it started to become this like TikTok thing where like these really attractive women in their 20s would be all like, oh, hashtag body positivity. And it's like, you're the fucking model. What are you talking about, right? And we got these girls and women and men, but like mostly this was women, right? Or bending over and like pulling out the little like inch of fat that they have when they bend over and pulling it up, being like, see, I have a normal body too. And then you and me are fat watching this being like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I'm 150 pounds heavier than you. You're 105 pounds soaking wet and 5'5", right? So it's like, it just became this thing that wasn't even about obesity anymore, but it actually did stem from that. And then it kind of turned into like influencers that were never fat talking about body positivity, and then people being like, fuck those influencers, they don't know what it's like to be fat. And then it became like a fat versus skinny thing, and then it just became less about obesity. And then it kind of became this, and then where it got really controversial is people getting into health at every size, right? So health at every size, these are the sorts of hashtags and terminologies that are picked up by influencers like Lizzo, right? Lizzo is an American singer-songwriter who probably is less famous now than she would have been 5 years ago. But really, she was kind of the face of a lot of this kind of health at every size sort of movement, whether she was using those words or not. That's what she meant to a lot of people and what she represented to a lot of people. And there's a point, the reason why it's so important to understand the history, there's a point where acceptance became it's a fine line. The line between acceptance and avoidance is extremely, extremely, extremely a fine line. So I'm going through all this shit. I'm fat through all of this, except I wasn't alive in the 1960s. Some of y'all listening to this were here for Mr. Bill's, National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance, the NAAFA. But all the rest of us that were not alive in the 60s or old enough in the 60s to remember that are just watching this like shitstorm in the last 20 years on social media, being like, okay, so does this mean that I should be happy with how fat I am? Does this mean that I should accept how fat I am? So I'm fat as fuck in 2019, 274 pounds, can't do a push-up, not an ounce of muscle in my body, looking in the mirror, scrolling on social media, hearing people talk about fat acceptance and body positivity. And I'm looking in the mirror like, yeah, I've got to try to love myself. I love myself, and like even trying, like looking at myself and trying to smile, try to find self-love. And then just not taking and then going and like binging a pizza. Be like, oh, it's okay. It's like not a super big deal, and I actually, when I really sit with it, this idea that self-love is something that is passive is not real. Like self-love comes from treating yourself in a loving way. And the part of this that was really difficult for me to accept, but as soon as I came to this acceptance, my whole life changed. The voice, I use that word loosely, the part of myself, I might say the voice in my head, that's telling me that it's not okay to be fat and I need to change, is actually the most positive and the most loving part of myself. Though we might sound like an asshole sometimes, hey, you got to fucking change, man. You can't be fat. You're fat as fuck. That voice is actually the part of myself that wants me to live. So something that the body positivity movement has wrong. They have so much right. Like, yes, you deserve to feel positive in your body. But even deeper than that, what you really deserve is to, here's the reality. Right now, you do not deserve to live in a healthy body. You always have exactly what you deserve. The reason why you do not live in a healthy body right now is because you have not taken the actions of a healthy person on a regular basis over the last 3 to 5 years. So you do not deserve to live in a healthy body right now in this moment in July of 2025. Otherwise, you would be living in a healthy body. But what you do deserve is the option to live in a healthy body and the access to taking the actions to live in a healthy body. And we all have access to taking those actions. There's a variety of different things that you can try. Strongly recommend a holistic approach like the system that I built for myself and put myself through and coach now. But there's a number of different things that you can try with varying levels of success. At the end of the day, you are allowed to change without hating yourself. So the reason that body positivity comes out with this whole movement is because the reason why it really took off is because people are hating themselves into results. People are hating themselves, telling themselves they're going to love themselves once they hit their weight loss goal. And that frame is wrong for a lot of reasons, because even after you hit your weight loss goal, you will not feel true acceptance for your body unless you did it sustainably, and most people don't. So even in my situation where I lost 75 pounds in the first 6 months, and then, the last 30 or 40 or so pounds over the 6 to 12 months after that, give or take, I don't remember exactly. It's like, I didn't then look at the mirror after I hit my weight loss goal and be like, yes, I finally love myself, and having this romantic moment of rubbing my chest and shit. It's like, I was looking there being like, okay, well, I'm still not good enough. Now I got to build some muscle. I'm still not good enough. Now I got to run the marathon. And still not, it's like this idea that you're just subtly going to feel like enough after you hit your weight loss goal and after you're quote unquote skinny is not true. It's so what we tend to do, let this be the biggest takeaway of the whole episode. What we tend to do is hate ourselves into results by telling ourselves that we are not enough. The biggest trick and the biggest joke of life is that even after you get that thing, the body, the money, the woman, the relationship, whatever, you're still not going to feel like enough. You're just not. So the path through this is to stop using feeling of not enoughness as your primary fuel source. Using it in an isolated container to get started is amazing. And that's contrary to what people might tell you. A lot of these weight loss gurus, I use that word very loosely, I'm air quoting if you're just listening and not watching, a lot of these gurus and influencers that are all like, self-love, be kind to yourself. You just got to self-love. It's like, that's not actually the reality of how most of them started their journey. What they did is they started their journey with a bit of a kick-ass attitude and radical honesty. And though that is loving, it probably didn't feel that loving at the time. It probably actually felt a little bit like hatred. And I'm not saying to hate yourself into results. I'm saying right now you're not even moving. So you've got to get moving. Even if that fuel is negative, you can connect with more positivity down the road. But if you're drowning in food noise and cravings and wishing that you weren't fat, the idea that you're going to be so connected to what it will be like to be healthy that everything in the world feels amazing is probably not true, because you're spending 99% of your time wishing that things were different, right? So it's like your ability, hold up both hands with me at the same time. We're going to solve this issue for you for literally ever right now. This idea of using pain and negativity and hatred as a primary fuel source, feeling like you're not enough as a primary fuel source, feeling not positive, thinking you'll feel more positive later, you won't. Here's how you solve this. Hold up your left and your right hand. Your left hand represents, I am enough. Your right hand represents, I can be better at the same time. Let's say that again. Shake your left hand. Hold it up in the air. I am enough. Shake your right hand up in the air. I can be better at the same time. And then conjoin your hands. That is the truth. You can actually be enough and be better at the same time. And had someone told me that, it would have saved me years of hating myself into results that were never permanent or sustainable in the first place, and thinking that I would feel more positive about my body just after I hit my weight loss goal. And that's not, it wasn't lasting. It was like this very short-term spurt of positivity. And that's the case for most people that actually get down there. And it's a lot of the reason why people end up gaining the weight back is because we think that weight loss alone is going to solve all of our problems. But that's not actually the truth. In a lot of ways, it's just going to actually expose more of your problems. So again, this idea of I don't feel positive in my body, let me feel more positive in my body by losing weight. It's not that it's wrong. It's that it's just not the full truth. So it's okay to let yourself believe that in the beginning so you can get your ass moving and actually set up a system where food works for you instead of against you, and actually have enough input to sit with the reasons why you use food like a drug in the first place. But that fuel burns really hot, that negativity of I'm not enough. I'm not positive enough. I will be when I achieve, and it will not hit that won't be your reality forever. It's not the actual whole truth, but it's a lie that you might tell yourself in the beginning just to get going so that you can get some positive momentum to connect with positivity a little bit further down the road. Pausing this episode for 1 second because I've got an ask for you as the listener. I love to keep this show completely ad-free, and the best way you can support me in doing that is by leaving a like or a review or a rating in Spotify or Apple or even YouTube if you're watching this in video format. Really helps me to grow my message and my impact and to reach other people that deserve to know you can put obesity behind you for good, and the other people that also need help fixing their fat minds the way that we're doing together on this show right now. And I'll just love you forever. Let's go ahead and get back to the show. The things that body positivity gets wrong, or pardon me, gets right, not wrong, is the idea of ending shame-based dieting, right? It's like this concept of dieting the shame away. It's never going to come because shame will come when you have a craving and then give into that craving, and the cycle will just continuously continue forever. And I really, really, really love that body positivity and the body positivity movement is all about promoting diversity in different body types. Like I'm not a model looking guy by any means. And I absolutely do not have an amazing looking body. And I probably never will. And that's fine. I'm not that, but I probably never will have some like modelistic looking build. And I'm okay with that. Right. And the last thing that they have right is helping people feel worthy regardless of their size, right? And again, we're talking about body positivity versus the body positivity movement. So I'm blending these things in a way that might not accurately depict exactly what happened historically. But this idea that you can feel some worthiness while you're fat is actually the truth. You do not deserve to live in a healthy body today, but you do deserve to live in a healthy body in a year. Again, if you deserve to live in it today, you already would be living in it. So what you deserve is what you've done based on your actions. And what you do deserve, what you do have is the worthiness and the sense of worthiness and deservingness to take those actions over the next year, right? And this idea of fat phobia and discrimination and discriminating against people in their own obesity is a real fucking gray zone. And it's just something I just don't really want to talk about because this is an unpopular opinion, but this is the opinion that helped me actually step into action. Fat phobia, meaning that you're, discriminated against for being fat. That's fucked up. At the same time, would you rather spend time with people that were healthy or people that were not healthy? Yeah, Nick, but health at every size. Health at every size is not real. A lot of the people that preach health at every size are dead. And if Lizzo would have died from her own obesity before she started losing weight a couple years ago and then getting hated on by the same movement that she used to represent because she was starting to take care of herself, which is also controversial, had she died, the whole movement would have died with her. And a lot of these people that we're seeing on TikTok and Instagram that are gorging themselves with food that are 300, 400, 500 pounds are dying. They're just suddenly gone. We're like, where are they? They died in their 20s and 30s, a lot of them. And it's like, that's really sad. And that's a really extreme, that's not like representative of what's happening for most people, but that's the extreme end of the overcorrection that we have made. There is this reality of like, let's say that you're a business owner and you're 55 years old and you're going to hire a VP to work alongside you as the CEO. And you've got two people, every single thing is the same. They are both also 55 years old. One of them, same background, exact same value of the company, everything the same. One of them is a healthy body weight. And one of them is 125 pounds overweight. Which one would you want to hire? And go, oh my God, if I would have heard that when I was fat, I'd be like, fuck you, Nick, who are you? Look, I've been on both sides of this. And I get it. And there is a point where you have to be radically honest with yourself. Do you want to hire someone that's 100 plus pounds overweight, that is going to probably have some health issues in the near future if they don't already, that might not be around working for the next 10 years the way the healthier person might? It's like, is that discrimination or is that just being radically honest? And that's a tough. Again, this is not a hard, fast rule. I speak in absolutes. It's my greatest strength and my greatest weakness. There are exceptions to all these things. But overarchingly, which hire would you make? You pick the fucking healthy person. And if you're saying you wouldn't, you're full of shit, right? You got to meet yourself with the actual radical honesty. And the reality is that a lot of y'all are that. I was that overweight person my whole fucking life. And a lot of you are there right now. And that's okay that that's where you're at. But this idea that is discrimination is not the same as discriminating on somebody's gender. It's not. It's just actually real. And like, it's a massive oversimplification because many of you listening to this are dealing with deeply rooted complex trauma. So it's not like just eat less, move more. Of course, you need to address the things that led to you being fat and take a holistic approach to your relationship to food and why you're eating the food and curing your fat mind, right? Whereas somebody making that higher might be like, well, this guy doesn't like himself because he eats too much. And like, that's an oversimplification. I get it. But there are real things like that that do lead to fat people being disadvantaged over people that aren't fat. And it is completely in your control. At the end of the day, it's how willing are you to make that change and what sacrifices are and how clear are you on what that change looks like. I didn't have that clarity when I was fat and how to do it sustainably. Again, I didn't have that clarity when I was in your same position. So if anybody gets it, it's me, but it's just not really the same. And it's like, there is this element of, people might call this fat phobia. And fat people should not be treated with disrespect. They should be treated with the same respect as healthy people. Absolutely, because everybody's dealing with their own shit, including people that are healthy. The difference is that those of us that have been fat or might be fat right now, our problems are very visible, where your neighbor might be a pill addict and you would never know, or an alcoholic and he might hide it. You can't really hide that you're fat. And you can't really hide the fact that you hide from parts of yourself by eating unhealthy food. And that if you were fully attuned to self-love and self-respect, that you probably wouldn't use food like that the way that you are right now. And it's like, again, I know that's really hard to hear. It's the truth, and your ability to sit with the radical truth. This is how I am. This is how I actually want to be. This is what I'm going to do to get there is directly correlated to your ability to lose weight and keep the weight off. People talk about this idea of skinny privilege all the time. And it's like the situation that I just described to you, where you're making a hire for your own business, where your livelihood is depending on this person and their tenure with the company and their ability to show up every day, regardless of how they feel. It's like, the reality is that skinny privilege is not real in most situations. Do some people treat fat people like shit? Yeah. Some people treat skinny people like shit. Like, go look at a homeless person downtown Austin, Texas, New York, San Francisco, or London and tell me that skinny privilege is real. It's not so much skinny or fat. It really comes down to how do you feel about yourself. And this is like the hardest pill to swallow ever, which is like, there are a lot of fat people that are treated with a lot of respect because they move with high radiance and positive energy. Lizzo might be an example of that, even though she's controversial. But it's like, Lizzo's not walking into a room and people being like, get the fatty away from me. She's walking into a room like, oh shit, look, this girl's like glowing, smiling. And my reality is I couldn't do that when I was fat because I genuinely didn't like myself. And that's the reality of a lot of people. That's what's not really portrayed in the media, right? I genuinely did not like who I was. And I genuinely chose consciously and subconsciously to eat the parts of myself that I didn't like to hide from them. And the reason why I wouldn't have gotten that hired decision, I wouldn't have been the one hired over the same person that weighed less, has some to do with my weight. Absolutely. But deeper than that has to do with the radiance that I move with. In the eye contact that I make and the way that I smile and speak, all these things are totally different for me now than they were 110 pounds ago. So the part of you, the reality is that you can love your body and still want more for it. And this idea that you're just going to look in the mirror and try to find positivity with the way that things are, the anxiety and the stress of the voice that you hear telling you to change, if you silence that voice, you're silencing the most loving part of yourself. Because if you love yourself, then you should want to get to a healthy body weight so that you can love yourself for longer. And you do love yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't still be listening to this podcast seeking to improve even 1 or 2%. Because the part of you that wants to improve is the part of you that already loves you. So some of you listening are like, well, I don't love myself. That's not true. You wouldn't be listening to this if no part of you gave a fuck at all. And that part of you that gives a fuck is the part of you that loves yourself. And that is the most positive part of yourself that you possibly have. So this idea of drowning out that anxiety and that stress of knowing that you should, dare I say should, could, can, but am not currently changing, the idea of drowning that under food, Xanax, any sort of pills, anti-anxiety, anti-stress, alcohol, weed, porn, whatever you're scrolling, whatever your coping mechanism is that probably isn't serving. And again, everybody has some sort of unserving coping mechanism, right? Your ability to stop drowning it and to start sitting with it and actually listening to it is the best path forward. And in a lot of ways, the idea of body positivity had stopped me from taking action. And the reality is that right now, 6 years later, I feel more positive about my body than I ever have before. And I had to put clothes on just to film this fucking podcast because I was walking around my place butt-ass naked for no reason because I just didn't want to have any clothes on. And it's like, that's the level of body positivity that I have. But when I was fat, I couldn't do it. So listening to the part of myself was the body positivity voice was not the part of myself that talked about like staying the same or being complacent or like you should feel good the way that you are. It's like, no, if you're 100 pounds overweight, you should not feel good. You should, because it's unnatural. And I'm speaking to my old self here, Nick, in 2019, you should not feel good at 110 pounds overweight. It's unnatural and you were not meant to be this fat. And should you feel really amazing at this weight, there wouldn't really be a reason to change. So, and this is kind of a tough episode to talk about, but in hindsight, there's a difference between compassion and comfort addiction. And that's just real. And your ability to just sit with like the radically honest truth and be like, in some ways, me trying to just find complete positivity and acceptance for where I am right now, or comfort is a better word for where I'm right now, isn't working. The path forward, that I really love is called body neutrality, which is more focused on the idea of finding love for yourself on the journey through taking the action. It's that same idea of I am enough and I can be better. Your body is enough right now. And your body can be better at the same time. Probably, if you're listening to this podcast, there's no amount of hating yourself into, and at the same time, there's no amount of hating yourself into weight loss that's ever going to result in permanent change most of the time. There's some outliers. I hated myself for a lot of my journey. I sometimes confuse self-love for self-hatred. I think that's a really common mistake, but a common misconception that people have, including me, on my weight loss journey. And I didn't have the language to a lot of this when I was losing weight, so I didn't always know exactly what the fuck I was doing. But you are allowed to change without hating yourself. And to recap this whole message, for those of you that are 50 plus pounds overweight, that have been losing weight and gaining it back your entire life, it makes sense that you want to feel body positivity. Looking in the mirror and speaking body positivity into existence right now is you probably not being fully honest with yourself. And the number one thing that you need to do to lose weight and keep it off is build the muscle of radical honesty. And the radically honest truth is that you need to change your relationship to food and the foods you eat. You need to get clear on why your mindset is this way and create a path to work through addressing it and healing it. And you need to get clear on how you started using food in this way and how you got in this place in the first place and actually address that wounding. And if you don't do that, then you're going to body positivity yourself into a lot of things that are not positive. The most body positive thing that I ever did for myself was get down to a healthy body weight, and you deserve to feel that as the truth, and you can. If you made it to the end of this podcast episode, it's an honor to have you here. You absolutely have what it takes to lose weight. You absolutely have what it takes to put obesity behind you. And if you'd like for me to guide you on the journey to making that happen the same way that I did for myself, in the same way that I do to other listeners of this podcast, you can click the link in the description of this podcast episode or this YouTube video, and I'd be happy to speak with you about it. Either way, see you next week.